First story. My father disciplined my daughter with a wooden paddle until her blood clotted as punishment after she didn't greet him. And my entitled wife used pepper spray on my father and banned him from my daughter. But he abused her out of love. So I forced my daughter to reconcile, and it cost me everything. Now my life is ruined, and I'm regretting my actions. I'm 43M, married to my wife 39F, and we have one daughter who's 13. My parents are still alive and very involved in our lives, or at least they were until recently. To understand how things reach this point, I need to explain a bit about how our family operates. I was raised in a strict, traditional household. My parents were never affectionate, and I can count the number of times they said, "I love you," on one hand. That said, they provided for me, instilled discipline, and kept me from falling in with the wrong crowd. When I misbehaved, physical punishment was used. At the time, that was considered normal in our community. My wife, on the other hand, grew up in a completely different environment. Her family is more progressive. She was taught to question things and encouraged to speak her mind, and the idea of hitting a child was foreign to her. Naturally, our worldviews clash a lot, especially around how to raise our daughter. The biggest source of tension has always been my parents. They've never liked my wife. They think she's mouthy and controlling, and that she wears the pants. My wife knows they feel this way, and it's made her resent them right back. If it were up to her, we'd have no contact with them. But they're my parents. I owe them everything. Cutting them off has never felt like an option to me. My daughter never liked them either. Even as a toddler, she would cry when we were on the way to their house. Eventually, I started having my parents visit our home instead, hoping it would make things easier. My wife believed these visits happened once a month, and that our daughter wasn't expected to interact with them. That was true at first, but I started having them over more often, when my wife was working late or out of town. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I thought it was better for everyone if my wife didn't have to be around them, and my daughter could gradually build a relationship with them. But I also expected my daughter to show respect when they were in the house. That's where things started going south. My parents believed they had a right to step in when my daughter acted out. Over time, they started imposing their expectations on her. They didn't like her wearing hoodies or graphic t-shirts. Said it looked sloppy for a girl. They also didn't like that she played video games or wore headphones in the house when guests were over. They started confiscating stuff they said was inappropriate, clothes they thought were too short, her phone when they thought she was being disrespectful, and once even her handheld gaming console. At one point, my mom told me that my daughter was turning out wild, and that my wife's influence was poisoning her. She told me I needed to man up and stop letting my wife dictate how our daughter behaved. That stung, but I said nothing. In a weird way, I think I agreed with parts of what she was saying. I didn't want my daughter growing up rude or entitled. I started enforcing some of their rules, asking my daughter to wear more modest clothes when they came over, making her sit at the table with us when she wanted to stay in her room. A few months ago, things hit a turning point. My daughter was in the middle of a game online with her friends. My parents showed up. I told her to come downstairs and greet them, and she flat out refused. She said she wasn't in the mood and didn't want to deal with them. I felt disrespected. I told her she needed to stop acting like a brat and come downstairs now. My dad overheard and barged up to her room. I followed him, thinking he was just going to talk to her. He ended up grabbing the controller from her hands, yanking the console out, and when she screamed at him, he paddled her. A full-on spanking with the wooden paddle they still keep in their car. She was screaming. I was stunned, but I didn't stop him. I honestly thought she had it coming for being that rude. My wife had just gotten home early. She heard our daughter crying and came running up. When she saw the marks, red, swollen, clear bruises, she went ballistic. She helped our daughter into the bathroom, took photos, and said nothing to me. That night, she slept in our daughter's room. The next morning, while I was at work, she packed a bag with medical records and the photos and drove straight to my parents' house with pepper spray and a taser. She showed up at their front door and let them have it. My mom called me screaming. My wife threatened to press charges, and that's exactly what she did. She filed a police report for child abuse. My dad was arrested later that week. He spent 48 hours in holding before being released. Charges are still pending. My parents haven't spoken to me directly since, only through their lawyer and my uncle. But the message was clear. They were humiliated. They blame my wife for everything. My dad says he was just doing what any grandfather should be allowed to do when a kid is out of line. My mom said my wife set him up to make them look like monsters. Now, my wife is saying she's done. No more visits. No more phone calls. Nothing. She wants me to cut them off completely and protect our daughter from them. She said if I don't, she'll consider separation. She hasn't said divorce yet, but the message is loud and clear. Meanwhile, my parents are demanding I divorce my wife and fight for full custody. They say I let my household get overrun by modern nonsense, and I've failed as a father. And now I'm sitting in the middle of this disaster. My daughter won't even look at me. My wife only speaks when it's absolutely necessary. I feel like I'm being asked to choose between the people who raised me and the family I built. I get that what happened was serious. I'm not trying to downplay it. But I also don't think my dad is some evil person. He reacted the way he was raised to believe was right. Was it too far? Probably. But I don't think it was some malicious thing either. The way my wife reacted charging into their house with weapons and filing criminal charges, it feels like a nuclear option. I didn't go to my dad's hearing. My wife said if I stepped into that courtroom on his side, I could find another place to sleep. That felt extreme, but I stayed home. I haven't visited my parents since. I've only taken one call from my uncle, who told me my parents are disgusted by my silence and think I've sold them out to save my marriage. My mom sent a message through my cousin that they're rewriting their will. Said they're done raising a man who turned his back when things got tough. Meanwhile, things at home are cold. My daughter avoids me. I try to talk, but she walks away or shuts her door. She doesn't yell. She doesn't cry anymore. She just doesn't say anything to me unless she has to. I found one of her old shirts in the laundry basket, the kind my mom used to criticize, and just seeing it made me feel like SHT. I thought about all the times I made her change before they came over, and made her sit there at the table while they picked her apart for how she looked, how she spoke, or how she didn't speak respectfully enough. I remember her sitting stiff, clenching her jaw while my mom told her she was getting chubby and needed to smile more. I remember saying nothing. I look back and see all of it clearer now. I tried to force a relationship that was never healthy for her. I made her presence mandatory. I stood by when my parents crossed lines because I didn't want to offend them. I thought eventually she'd come to appreciate them. That I was doing what any good son should do, keeping family together. But she wasn't building memories. She was building trauma. And I didn't step in. My wife's furious, but she's not even yelling anymore. It's worse than yelling. It's quiet. She's withdrawn. She said the lie I told her, saying I was only having them over once a month, and not forcing our daughter to interact wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was a betrayal of her as a mother. She said if she hadn't come home early that day, she might have never known how far things had gone. I asked her what she wanted now. She said it's simple. No more contact. Nothing. No texts, no calls, no holidays. If they show up, don't open the door. No third chances. And she said if I think even once about letting them back in, she will leave and take our daughter. I still haven't responded to my parents' demands. They want me to file for divorce and sue for full custody, saying my wife is mentally unstable and dangerous. They actually had a lawyer draft papers and sent them to me. I threw them in the trash. But I'm still torn. I grew up believing you never abandon your parents. That no matter how hard they are, you stay loyal. They raised me. They worked long hours to keep food on the table. They didn't beat me senseless. They used what they thought was discipline. And yeah, it hurt. But I got through it. I didn't see it as abuse, just how things were done. So part of me still feels like I should stand by them. That they're old, and this situation, this humiliation might be the last straw for their health, their pride, and their will to live. I know how bad that sounds, but it's real. My dad's not the same since the arrest. I've heard he's been sleeping in his recliner and barely speaking. But then I look at my daughter, who can't sleep without the hallway light on now. Who flinches when I raise my voice? Who checks the driveway through the window if the doorbell rings? And I realize this isn't about tradition or loyalty anymore. This is about safety, about peace, about whether I even deserve to still be in this house with them. I'm not proud of what I did. I lied to my wife. I let my daughter get hurt. I defended people who showed they didn't care how much damage they caused, as long as they got to stay respected. Now I'm left with this mess. My wife has drawn her line. My daughter already made hers clear. My parents refuse to acknowledge any wrongdoing. They're still convinced I'm the one who failed. So here I am, no good options, just consequences. I still haven't decided whether I'm going to block my parents. I haven't told them it's over. I haven't told them anything. And I'm wondering, Aita for trying to keep my parents in my daughter's life. For lying about how often they came over. For letting them discipline her the way I was raised. I didn't think it would end with police, court, and my family on the verge of collapse. But I let it get here. So, Reddit, Aita. Comments. Comment 1. Your parents packed a wooden paddle in their damn luggage. That means they planned to hit your daughter. They didn't snap in the heat of the moment. They brought a weapon to discipline a child in your home. And you let them. Let that sit for a second. You weren't just passive. You cleared the runway for it. You hid their visits from your wife. You ignored your kids' pleas. And you sat back while she got hit for playing a video game. And your response. I respect my parents. You don't even respect your wife enough to tell her the truth, or your daughter enough to protect her. You talk about loyalty like it's some honorable thing. But real loyalty doesn't mean letting people destroy your family because you're afraid to upset them. You were a coward, man. You picked the easy road every single time, and now you're shocked that everything's burning. You're lucky your wife didn't take your daughter and leave the second she saw those bruises. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she still does. Comment 2. You spent so much time trying to avoid conflict that you ended up enabling a cycle of emotional and physical harm. I don't think you're evil or intentionally cruel, but you prioritized nostalgia and family loyalty over your daughter's well-being, and now she's paying the price for your indecision. What really struck me was how early your daughter started resisting visits. Kids don't come out of the womb hating their grandparents. That was a signal, probably the first of many, that she didn't feel safe. And every time she cried, you taught her that her fear was less important than your parents' comfort. This wasn't just about a spanking. This was years of being forced into a role to appease people who never once tried to meet her where she was. That changes a person. Don't be surprised if she cuts you off too when she's older. Comment 3. Jesus Christ, man. You watched your daughter get paddled with a damn wooden stick and stood there thinking, she had it coming. You disgusting pos. You talk about respect like it's earned through silence and obedience. No wonder your daughter won't look at you. What the hell were you expecting? A thank you for letting your folks run your house like it's 1952. And your dad got arrested because your wife documented assault. Let's stop dancing around it. If some random old man hit your daughter that hard, you'd be out for blood. But because it was your dad, you froze. You didn't just lie, you sacrificed your wife's and kids' mental health so your parents wouldn't feel embarrassed. Your wife walked into a hostile house alone, armed, after cleaning your kids' wounds. Let that sink in. She's the only adult here who acted like a damn parent. Comment 4. Your parents are emotionally abusive, physically abusive, clearly hate your wife, and treat your daughter like she's defective. Your daughter screams and cries not to see them. Your wife has to document bruises. Your dad gets arrested, and your biggest concern is feeling caught in the middle. No, man. You put yourself there. You dragged your daughter into that mess over and over again to appease two people who treat your entire household like garbage. And now your wife is one step from packing her SHT and leaving. And you still can't admit who really broke this family apart. Here's a question. If your wife had dragged your daughter to her parents' house and let them paddle her, would you be writing this post? Or would you be calling the cops? You didn't protect your kid. You didn't support your wife. You stood back while the people you respect torched your family from the inside out. And now you're wringing your hands like you don't know how it happened. This isn't hard. You already chose. You just don't want to deal with what that choice cost you. Update. Since I posted here, I've read every comment, every DM, and every reply. A lot of what was said hit me hard, especially the reality that I hurt the two people I love most. My daughter and my wife. I see now how my actions made them feel abandoned, unsafe, and dismissed. I'd like to think I'm compassionate and kind. I grew up being treated harshly by my own parents, and always believed that made me strong and resilient. I was wrong about a lot of that. After everything that happened with my dad getting arrested, my daughter starting therapy, and my wife filing for legal separation, life has been far from calm. The restraining order against my parents is still in place. My wife asked for it after they kept trying to contact us directly, going around me and sending letters to our daughter's school. The judge granted it because of the documented injuries and the incident they caused when my wife showed up at their house with photos and medical reports. I understand why the court did it at the time. It was the only way to make sure my daughter was safe. My daughter's therapist has been a major presence in our home lately. She's wonderful, professional, and firm, and she's helped my daughter start processing a lot of the experiences she's had with my parents. At first, I was defensive towards the therapist. I kept trying to explain my perspective of how I was raised and why I thought some things were discipline and tough love. The therapist never argued with me directly, just kept asking questions that I couldn't answer without feeling someone else's pain. Over time, I started to see things differently. For the first time, I heard an adult say aloud that hitting a 13-year-old with a paddle at home, in front of family, is abusive. That was a wake-up call I couldn't argue with. About a month ago, I made a decision that is probably the worst decision I've made yet. I still loved my parents and thought that if I could just get them to see how much their actions hurt my daughter, maybe we could start some kind of healing. So I contacted them privately. I told my wife I was going to a men's support group meeting, which was half true. I did go to the meeting, but my real intention was to stop by my parents' place afterwards. I thought I could explain to them gently why my daughter couldn't see them, and that we needed a break. But maybe, eventually, we could talk again. That evening, after the support group let out, I walked to their house a few blocks away. It was quiet. My stomach was twisted, but I convinced myself I was doing the right thing. When I knocked, neither of them looked surprised to see me. My mom invited me in. My dad looked stiff, like someone who's been scolding kids for decades, and never heard any pushback until now. I started by saying I wanted peace. I explained that my daughter's therapy was going well, that she was starting to open up about how scared and judged she felt. And I said that maybe after some time she'd be able to see them again slowly, carefully, on her terms. I thought they'd at least listen. They didn't. Within 5 minutes, my dad was lecturing me about how children these days aren't raised right, and how my wife poisoned our daughter against them. My mom was nodding. I stood there, wanting them to understand. And that's when my dad said our daughter needed to be tougher, that a few good whacks would straighten her out. In that moment, I saw exactly how little they had changed. I told them to stop. I told them this wasn't acceptable. But they just stared at me. They were so convinced they were right, they didn't even understand why I was upset. I left their house and walked home in shock. I kept thinking, how did this happen? How did my life become this? That same night, my daughter had a meltdown when she came home from therapy. She was shaking and crying, and she said she overheard me on the phone with my dad earlier that week, agreeing to help her see them soon. She said she felt betrayed all over again, that I promised I wouldn't put her in that position. And there I was, trying behind her back to fix things with the very people who made her feel unsafe. She told me, quietly at first, "You made me see them again, and I want you to put my grandparents in a nursing home and leave them to die. And when they die, I want to stomp and dance on their grave." Hearing that was like someone punching me in the chest. I froze. My daughter looked at me with eyes that weren't just angry, they were hopeless. I didn't argue with her. I just held her as she cried. That moment shattered every excuse I had left. My wife was furious when I told her what happened. She said I crossed a line that shouldn't have existed. She reminded me the restraining order is legally binding, no contact at all, even through messages or indirect visits. She said if my parents show up near our home, she'll call the police immediately. The restraining order has already been used once since then. My parents tried to send a courier with a letter to our daughter, talking about how this too shall pass. The package was intercepted by our neighbor, who legally handed it over to my wife. Right after, my wife filed a motion to extend the order indefinitely. The atmosphere at home has been tense, but quieter than before. I stay mostly in my office during the day, trying to work, while my daughter retreats to her room or sits downstairs with her therapist's teddy bear when she needs comfort. My wife spends a lot of time in legal preparation for her separation and potential divorce filing, consulting her attorney about custody and emotional distress claims. I'm trying to be present, but every time I see my daughter's eyes avoid mine, I feel like I'm watching the consequences of my actions unfold in real time. My parents have not backed down. Through my uncle, they sent a message last week that they want custody of my daughter, saying her mother and I are unfit because we caved to modern nonsense. They also said I should divorce my wife and take the child for myself, and that I'll regret it if I let feminism destroy my family. I didn't respond. I haven't contacted them since that failed attempt at reconciliation. There was one moment that made me realize just how far apart we all are. A couple of weeks ago, on my daughter's birthday, I tried to do something simple. I bought her favorite ice cream, the flavor she used to share with her grandparents when she was little, back when she said she liked them. I brought it home and offered it to her with an apology and a promise that I'd respect her wishes. She accepted the ice cream. But then she told me she hated that flavor now, because it reminded her of the pressure and judgment she felt trying to make her grandparents like her. I understood then. She wasn't rejecting them, she was rejecting what the relationship had cost her. And she was right. Things are fragile. My daughter is healing slowly with her therapist. My wife and I are trying to rebuild trust, though it's clear the past cannot be erased. I've formally agreed with my wife in writing to have no contact with my parents, directly or indirectly, while my daughter is a minor and undergoing therapy. I've also asked the therapist to provide a letter to the court about what's in my daughter's best interest for custody proceedings. I still love my parents. I always will. But I can't expose my daughter to the kind of harshness and judgment they represent again. I've stopped trying to fix my parents. I've stopped lying to my wife. And the hardest thing I'm learning is that love without accountability hurts the people you say you care about. I wanted to give everyone an update because your comments forced me to reflect honestly on what I was doing and why. I'm still in the middle of this mess. My wife is wrapped up in legal battles and her job. My daughter is struggling emotionally, but getting stronger day by day. And I'm trying to find a way to be a better father and husband without reverting to old patterns that nearly destroyed my family. If anyone wants more updates, I'll post. Comments. Comment 1. You kept saying you turned out fine, but you have no sense of self-worth outside of other people's approval. You spent your entire life adapting to survive in a home where love came with conditions. That's what you gave your daughter. A house where she had to be someone else to keep the peace. You weren't clueless. You were complicit. The clothes, the forced visits, the silence when your parents judged her, you enforced every inch of that for years. And you still acted confused when she exploded. Your daughter didn't say she hated your parents for drama. She said it because you let them make her feel small in her own home. And even now, your focus is all wrong. You're still narrating like you're stuck in a tragic film where everyone's at fault and you're the peacemaker. You weren't. You were the conduit. You want redemption. Start by shutting up about how hard it is for you. And make your daughter feel like she's finally got one adult in her corner who won't offer her up for tradition. Comment 2. When a child says something like that, stomp and dance on their grave. It's not cruelty. It's grief. Rage is just grief with no outlet. Your daughter is grieving the idea that her father would protect her. That home was safe. That being good, quiet, and obedient would finally make them stop picking her apart. She lashed out because she's done waiting for someone to stop the damage. And from what you've described, she's learned again and again that if she doesn't raise her voice to a level people can't ignore, no one will listen. Her tears didn't change anything. Her silence didn't change anything. This was the last thing she had left, a sharp, ugly truth meant to be undeniable. It isn't about your parents anymore. It's about what you've shown her love looks like. If love means protecting abusers, what is she supposed to want from you now? Forgiveness. You want her to heal. Stop taking her pain as an insult. Take it as a final offer. She's letting you see what it's cost her. This is the line. Step up and start parenting her in the present. Or accept that you're already in her past. Comment 3. I had parents like yours. Thought silence and fear were the same as discipline. I cut them off the day my son started crying because he didn't know if grandpa loved him or hated him. You didn't just let your parents repeat the cycle, you handed them your daughter and walked away. The worst part? You weren't clueless. You knew she hated them. You knew she cried. You watched it happen. And instead of stepping in, you kept one foot in the past and hoped everyone would just get over it. You talk like you want peace, but peace without justice is just quiet suffering. Your daughter isn't asking you to erase your parents. She's asking you to pick her when it counts. You didn't. And even now, you talk about ice cream and healing like you're still trying to soften what happened. She's not soft. She's scarred. You helped make that happen. You don't fix this with flavor preferences and therapy copays. You fix this by owning it and proving daily that her safety won't come second again. Not even to your own guilt. Comment 4. I'm watching my best friend fight for custody right now because her ex, like you, kept giving abusive grandparents access to their kid. Same excuses. They're old, they love her, they just don't know better. What did she get out of it? A daughter with night terrors and court-mandated therapy. You're trying to act like you were naive, but you weren't. You knew your parents brought a paddle. You let them discipline her like it was 1970. You let them rip stuff out of her room and criticize her clothes. You just didn't care enough to stop it, not until the bruises were documented. Your wife has one foot out the door, and still you're clinging to this idea that you're just caught in the middle. No, you built this situation. You actively contributed to it. You lied. You facilitated contact. You downplayed everything they did. And now that your daughter is finally saying what she feels out loud, even if it's brutal, you're shocked. She's finally safe enough to speak because other people protected her. You didn't. That's what you need to sit with. And not for one post. For the rest of her childhood. Update. I planned something small for Father's Day. Nothing public. Just a lunch at home. My daughter didn't want to go out, and I didn't push it. My wife didn't ask questions, so I assumed she either didn't notice or didn't want to fight about it. I cooked, put some old photos on the table, and set a plate for my dad. I didn't invite them directly. I told them they could stop by if they happened to be in the area. They didn't respond. I figured it was still worth it. Thought maybe my daughter would see the effort, the meaning behind it. She came downstairs once, grabbed a snack, didn't say anything. No hug, no happy Father's Day, no glance at the table. I asked if she'd stay for a bit. She said she had homework and walked back upstairs. The quiet in that room felt worse than shouting. I waited 2 hours. My parents never showed. My wife left to meet a coworker for coffee. When I finally packed up the food and cleared the plates, it hit me nothing landed. The gesture meant nothing to anyone but me. Later that week, a package arrived at the door. My parents had sent birthday gifts to my daughter. Jewelry, clothes she would have liked years ago, and a handwritten card signed only by my dad. I didn't mention it to my wife. Just left it on the kitchen counter. My daughter walked in, looked at the box, and didn't say a word. She went to her room. The next morning it was in the trash. My wife pulled it out, put it in a donation box, and never brought it up. I kept trying to rebuild anything with either of them. I wasn't shouting or throwing things. I wasn't blaming them. I just kept offering. Kept suggesting, asking, hoping. Every offer got shut down. Every word felt like it was being measured and tossed aside. I was still sleeping in the guest room. We barely spoke. I told myself it was temporary. Then came the dog. He died in his sleep one morning while I was out for a jog. My daughter found him curled up by the laundry room. She called my wife. They took him to the vet. When I came home, it was already done. I asked what the plan was for the ashes. My daughter said she wanted to scatter them at the trail where we used to take him. I made a quiet phone call to my parents. Told them he passed. My mom said, "He was a good boy. He deserves a family burial." My dad said, "We've got space near the garden." I drove the ashes there that evening. Didn't tell anyone. I placed him near the rosebush, said a few words, and went home thinking I had honored him the right way. My daughter found out 3 days later. I don't know how, maybe a message from my mom, maybe a comment I let slip. She stopped talking altogether. Stopped eating at the table. My wife didn't say anything until Friday. Then she walked into the guest room, closed the door, and put an envelope on the bed. It was the divorce papers. There was no discussion. No fight. Just a signature line and a look in her eyes that told me it was already done. She had the documents ready. Dated, signed by her lawyer. I wasn't shocked. I'd known for months that I wasn't part of this house anymore. But seeing it spelt out, official and permanent, I wasn't ready for that. I did what I thought I had to do. I called my parents. Told them what happened. My dad said, "It's time to stop playing nice." My mom said, "Take her to court. She's unstable." They offered to pay for the lawyer. I filed for full custody. I gave my lawyer every document I could. Text from my wife, I thought, made her look dismissive. Screenshots of therapy bills. I thought I could show the court that I was a consistent presence, a stable figure. That I'd never hit my daughter, never raised my voice, never broken a plate. I thought that would count for something. My wife showed up with 5 folders. One was therapy reports. One was from the hospital visit the night my daughter was spanked. Another had the police report and restraining order from that incident. She brought a sworn statement from the therapist. Notes from the school counselor. Photos I hadn't seen before, bruises, journal entries. One was a letter my daughter wrote in 5th grade that said, "I don't like when they come. I feel like I'm not real." Her lawyer read it aloud in court. I wasn't prepared. I looked like I had no idea what my daughter had been through, and I didn't. I told myself she was just sensitive, just reacting, just going through a phase. But the court didn't see it that way. The judge asked why I went behind the restraining order to deliver ashes to my parents. I didn't have an answer. They gave my wife full custody. I got supervised visits once a week, pending reevaluation after 6 months. My daughter hasn't shown up once. I text. I wait at the center. Nothing. I tried reaching out to my parents after the ruling. They didn't pick up. The next morning, my mom sent me a 1-line email. "We didn't raise you to lose like this." I haven't heard from them since. I lost my family in pieces. First, my daughter's trust. Then my wife's patience. Then my case in court. Then the people I gave everything to, my parents, washed their hands of me. when I stopped being useful. I don't blame anyone but myself. People keep telling me to start over, that this is a chance to heal. I don't feel like healing. I feel hollow. I visit the supervised center every week. I sit with puzzles and quiet toys meant for toddlers, hoping she'll walk in. She never does. I asked her therapist once through my lawyer if she'd be willing to write me a letter. Not a warm one, just something honest. Something to show me where I stand. She wrote back. Right now, she doesn't see you as someone she needs. She sees you as someone she survived. That's where it ends. If she ever wants to talk, I'll be here. But I'm not expecting it anymore. I made my choices, and they cost me everything that mattered. Comments. Comment 1. I didn't cry at my grandmother's funeral. Everyone said she was strict but loving. What I remember is being told my hips made me look cheap at 10. Being spanked in front of cousins. Being made to apologize for making things awkward when I cried. Your parents didn't just discipline. They were humiliated. They taught your daughter she was defective, and you watched it happen with your hands in your pockets. All the while pretending love would fix it. Love without protection doesn't mean SHT. The Father's Day thing. You wanted her to see how you feel about your dad, but she's already seen it. Every time you chose him over her. Every time you stood by when he picked her apart. Every time she cried and you said, he means well. She already knows exactly what he means to you. That's why she walked past the table like it was invisible. And now you're surprised that your parents ditched you too. They don't love you. They love power. They loved that you followed orders. When you stopped being useful, they threw you out like garbage. Your daughter did what you couldn't. She broke the cycle. You just got caught in the debris. Comment 2. I work in family law. You'd be shocked how many dads walk into court stunned. They lost custody after doing nothing wrong. But when you break it down, ignoring emotional abuse, violating restraining orders, burying the dog at your parents' house behind your kids' back, the pattern isn't passive. It's calculated. Quiet damage is still damage. The worst part? You probably believed every move was about love. That's the most dangerous kind. The kind that says, if I just keep trying, they'll get over it. Meanwhile, your daughter's writing in a journal that she doesn't feel real. She'll remember that more than anything. I've seen girls like her grow up. Most cut ties completely. The ones who don't usually end up in therapy trying to rebuild boundaries you never taught them to enforce. And the fathers? Most of them spend the rest of their lives waiting for a phone call that never comes, confused why being present wasn't enough. You wanted to hold on to everyone. Instead, you lost them all. And when you sit in that supervised visitation room alone, that's the outcome of every "it wasn't that bad" moment added together. She survived you. Believe that. Don't expect her to thank you for it. Comment 3. Your wife gave you years. Years of warning, begging, dragging herself through visits and fake smiles, just to keep the peace while you let your parents pick your daughter apart like it was their right. She should have left the day your father bruised her kid. She should have filed the first time she caught you lying about having them over. But she didn't. She tried. Harder than most would have. And what did you do with that time? You used it to quietly undermine her, to sneak your parents in, and to guilt trip your own child into accepting people who made her feel worthless. You didn't just fail as a partner. You sabotaged your own family and called it love. The divorce wasn't the betrayal. Staying as long as she did, that was her mistake. And even now, I can't blame her for cutting you out completely. She's not doing it out of spite. She's finally putting her daughter first after years of being surrounded by people who treated her like a problem. You didn't protect either of them. You just kept hoping they'd fold. She finally stopped playing. And you're stuck living with the version of yourself that lost them both. Second story. My siblings didn't want to pitch in for our mother's birthday celebration, but wanted credit. So I canceled the party and did my own thing. I'm having a mild panic attack because I acted out of frustration, and don't know if that makes me an arsey hole in this situation or not. My mom's birthday was last week. My family, myself, my 3 younger brothers, their sauce, and my mother made plans to do dinner at my mom's place tonight. I planned to buy and cook all the food and the cake, and then my brothers and I were going to go in on a big gift for my mom. We've been planning this for weeks. I've been busy with work, so I wasn't able to go get the gift earlier this week. But I texted my brothers in a group chat today and sent a screenshot of the gift. Let them know I was going to pick it up, reminded them of the dinner time, and asked them to send me their share of the money. All of them chose then to inform me they didn't have money to pitch in, which normally doesn't bother me. I understand that the world is rough right now and everything is expensive. I'm barely hanging on by a thread most days. I have a degree and work an emotionally draining job during the week, and have a second side gig that I work literally every day. I know how hard it is to just survive, but I've been busting my arse all week to make sure I had the money to do this for my mom. She goes all out for all of us on our birthdays and Christmas, and literally every other day of the year. I made sure to fully plan this out way in advance, so my brothers could save the money for the gift, and literally didn't have to do anything else, but show up for dinner with our mother. So when they all just sounded super nonchalant about not having the money to chip in, and kind of like they just expected me to take care of everything, I lost it a little. I called my mom, didn't tell her why, because I didn't want to hurt her feelings, though I'm sure she figured it out, and asked if she'd like to go to her favorite restaurant for dinner on me, of course. She sounded excited about that. I texted the boys and told them I was taking her to dinner instead, and they could come if they wanted to. They were all pretty pissed about it, because they don't have the money to go. I did tell them I was picking up a cake after dinner, and they could meet me at my mom's to do the cake and see her, though that didn't seem to help much. I still plan to go pick the gift up, but I'm not putting their names on it, which I feel petty about, but I'm just tired of this happening every time we do something for her. They always seem to have money and ideas for my dad. I feel like they take our mom for granted, and I'm always picking up the slack, so she thinks all of us were in on whatever it was I planned. Amida. Should I have just carried on with the original plan? Comments. Comment 1. This is better. She gets to go out to eat and spend time with her daughter. Also, why should your brothers get credit they had no part in? If your mom doesn't already know, it's time she found out. Comment 2. Also, OP shouldn't be paying for all the food to feed her 3 brothers, and presumably their sows as well. From now on, buy your own individual gift for your mom. Take her out to eat yourself, and only pay for yourself and your mom. Everyone else can buy their own gifts. Everyone else can put in the effort to celebrate your mom themselves. It's not your job to pick up the slack for them. They didn't bother saving because they thought you would take care of it for them. I'm guessing you always have. Did your parents raise you and your brothers to believe the women are the planners and party hosts, and the men just show up, eat, and leave? If so, stop that cycle. Update. Hi, everyone. First, thank you all for the comments. I super appreciate each of you taking the time to respond. Some of it was for sure tough to read, but I think I needed to hear it. Second, this is a really lengthy update, but after so many comments, I figured I should give it. My mom and I had an amazing day yesterday. We went shopping, went to dinner, and I gave her the gift I got her. The woman almost did cartwheels out of the restaurant. It was just a pink KitchenAid stand-up mixer. She's wanted one forever and would never buy it for herself. Seeing her so excited made all of this totally worth it. Update on my brothers. They pulled their 3 brain cells together by the end of the day and realized why I was so upset. They ended up apologizing and promising not to let it happen again, which I appreciate, but I did let them know my boundaries going forward. I plan to make this a tradition with my mom, and they're always invited to attend the dinner, but I won't be getting my hopes up for them going in on a bigger gift, nor will I rely on them to do so. I encourage them to each get a gift from my mom on their own. They can do with that what they will, but I know where I stand. They all did come over to her house afterwards for the cake. My mom definitely has bougie taste in baked goods, so the cake I got was fairly expensive, but still totally worth it to see her so excited. The boys said they were going to send me money to pitch in for the cake when they get paid next week. Whether or not they actually will, I'm not sure, but I guess we'll see. I had already planned to do that on my own, so I'm not really pressed about them sending the money for that. It would be nice, but I'm not holding my breath. My mom loved the cake, and loved that all of her kids/grandkids/dills came together to sing happy birthday and hang out with her for a couple of hours. I wanted to answer some frequently asked questions too. I am a woman, and the oldest of the siblings. I'm 31. My 3 brothers are all grown, ranging in age from 23 to 29. My dad didn't know any of this was happening, mainly because he and my mom are no longer married. They've been divorced since I was 16, though I should have called him to let him know. He does not mess around about my mom and gives a very good, pull your head out of your arse speech. This has happened a few times in the past. As in, they are not putting in nearly as much effort as I have, or none for some of them, and I just go through with it anyway for my mom. But that's not happening again. It took me 31 years to set these boundaries with my brothers, but those boundaries are permanent going forward. I am usually the one to plan birthdays or other special occasions outside of major holidays. My parents always planned the big holidays together. They're divorced, but we still do things like Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, and Halloween together as a family. I've been fairly blessed with parents who have divorced, but are still really good friends. My brothers always have more input on my dad, because they do know him better, I think. I'm close to both of my parents, but my mom is definitely my best friend. We see each other multiple times a week just to do random stuff like go to Walmart together or whatever. We also live fairly close to each other, which makes this possible. All of my brothers work with my dad every day, so they do talk all the time. Although, I feel like this shouldn't be an excuse not to have at least one idea. My mom gets excited by any amount of effort from anyone in her life. They could gift her a picture of her with her grandkids in a nice frame, and she would cry for a week. Like, it doesn't have to be expensive. It just has to show you thought about her. I just wanted to do this big gift because she's been staring at this damn mixer for 2 years now, talking about how much she wants it. But she will never buy something expensive for herself. She deserved it. I think those were the most asked questions. If you want to know anything else, feel free to ask. But also thank you all again. I needed the tough love. I've been coddling my brothers since they were born, and that's my fault. As the oldest and a very type A personality, I have always felt responsible for everyone in my family. I'm slowly learning that's not helpful to them or myself. Top comment reply to OP. Commenter. First off, it sounds like you made sure your mum had a wonderful all about her birthday. Also, you got your sibs to wake TF up about their attitude to their mother. But, just a pink KitchenAid stand mixer? That would make us do cartwheels, jumping jacks, and jazz hands all at once. That is a primo, #1, first-rate gift. Kudos to you. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.